welcome to the Mariah Jean Fit YouTube channel. I'm Coach Mariah. Make sure you like our videos, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos as much as possible so we can reach a broader audience. We appreciate your support and enjoy the video. Hello and welcome to another vlog on YouTube and podcast on Spotify by the Fit Minds podcast. Coach Mariah here. Today I'm going to talk about quick fixes. Now this is not going to be too dissimilar to the topic of short-term versus long-term gratification, but I want to discuss how quick fixes and that kind of mentality can be detrimental for our long-term success. I aim to touch on a mentality which seems all too common in today's society, specifically in reference to health, mindset, fitness and nutrition. So this will be more localized towards quick fixes around nutrition and fitness. But it is definitely a concept that applies to most areas of your life. So what does it look like? How do you know if you're adopting a quick fix mentality? Do you find yourself reaching for the first thing to make sure you feel better in the moment, spontaneously deciding to go out for drinks with friends when you've had a bad day? Despite this probably initially feeling like it is the logical answer for your problems, it is definitely falling into that category of quick fix type of mentality. Perhaps looking for a medication or a pill that you can take that will improve your health before looking at your lifestyle choices. Going to a doctor to seek out a prescription before considering what might benefit your health in other ways. Now, this doesn't apply to those who have legitimate reasons for requiring prescription medication. This is looking at perhaps a time in our lives where we have gone to our doctors seeking out medications for issues that may be reliant upon our decisions in life and what we can do towards improving our health markers. Whether it be in the form of addictions, so quick fixes such as social media, alcohol, drugs, even prescription medications, sex, gambling, impulse purchases, smoking or vaping, or even seeking compliments from strangers, constantly changing projects or hobbies or careers, or even seeking validation and affirmations from other external sources. Things like eating disorders, again, can fall into that, and I've said this in previous podcasts. This is where we see that if you currently have any sort of addictions, this will fall under the umbrella of instant fixes or quick fixes because they are, in a sense, feeding a dopamine requirement. So now, other than that though, there are quick fixes that people will look to be able to solve a problem quickly instead of thinking about the long-term requirements of that solution and being able to sustain the solution and the results that you want long-term. So it's a concept that revolves around the idea that we want to seek out something that instantly gives us a fix for our problems or masks our feelings or issues. And we've all done it, we've all been in the situation, we've all looked for the thing to make us feel good now. And even things like, impulse buying, impulse purchases, etc. can fall under that category, which we wouldn't often think about, but now you're listening to this podcast, you're probably mulling over some of those concepts and ways of coping. So it might look like, even so, signing up to an 8-week challenge, assuming that you're going to drop 8 to 10 kilos. I'm not sure where this number comes from, but a lot of people will get super excited about an 8-week challenge and they envision, losing 8 kilos in 8 weeks or losing 10 kilos in 8 weeks, not really thinking about the realistic timeline, their own starting body composition, whether or not anything might go wrong in the time that they are on this 8-week challenge, without considering any sort of behavioral changes, lifestyle changes, etc. required long-term to sustain the results. So they think about the 8 weeks, they think about the results coming to them as fast as possible and being able to completely transform their bodies, and yet they don't envision the 8 weeks as a taste tester of what you will need to sustain long term. Not for a deficit, a calorie deficit, you won't have to diet forever, but certainly a lifestyle that is sustainable. So it might look like buying a fat burner supplement that has been advertised to you, such as, that they actually will be labeled as a fat burner, burn fat fast or fat blaster or something like that, without actually considering whether or not it does indeed burn fat. And trust me, as a sports nutritionist, I can vouch that there are currently no legal supplements that you can purchase which will burn more fat. And even the illicit ones have serious health side effects that, you still have to eat in a calorie deficit for it to work. You could put yourself on clenbuterol, which is illegal in Australia. You could put yourself on metformin is another one, which is legal, but it's used for diabetics. But you still need to be sitting in a calorie deficit for this to work. So the illicit substances, the illegal substances, or certainly abusing prescription medications and the like will still require you to eat less calories to burn fat. Now, the supplements that are legal that exist, there is seen to be little to no advantage. Carnitine is one of the ones in the industry that people talk a lot about, and the current evidence only supports carnitine for utilizing more fat in energy burning processes, only for endurance athletes, and only when consuming a large amount of carbohydrates daily, which will usually give more of a performance enhancement effect rather than an actual body recomposition effect. So carnitine for the purpose of gen pop fat loss and resistance training, for fat loss and resistance training, is not going to work very well. And unless you're an endurance athlete, eating lots and lots of carbs every day, you're not going to be able to facilitate a higher fat usage or lipid burning facilitation from L-carnitine. And it does take about 6 months of supplementation daily for carnitine to actually take full effect. So the benefits of legal supplements, so things like carnitine, and generally that is the one that is shoved down people's throats. Caffeine is another one which only elevates heart rate. It can obviously improve sports performance, but the benefits of them are next to nil for fat burning capabilities. So generally they're a waste of your money. Most of them are, unless it's a caffeinated substance. It's going to be the highest advantage from that sports performance aid. So basically it's just expensive caffeine. The illegal substances will cause serious health issues such as hormonal imbalances, sometimes a reliance upon that medication. So when you obviously take it away, you will then have a complete change in your metabolic rate. So let's say you're getting some of these side effects, you need to come off of it. Well, obviously you're not going to burn as much coming off of it, and you're going to go back to where you were before with your homeostasis, so the state of your body without that medication. Heart complications. Okay, yes. One of the major complications of taking a substance called clenbuterol, which is an illicit substance, is that you will have heart complications, and there is risk of heart failure and death, and it's quite high. Blood pressure complications, anxiety and paranoia, and these are not small symptoms. These are major symptoms that most people will experience taking these illicit substances. Dehydration, and that can lead to death as well. Loss of concentration, and as I said, potential death. And the list goes on. There are more than just a couple of side effects from illegal fat-burning substances, and there's a reason why they're illicit, okay, because they're really dangerous. Especially if they're not administered properly. It might look like wanting to get your results fast, to make things happen instantly for yourself. I want to see change now. I want to see change in 2 days' time. Why don't I see change in a week? Because you are impatient and you're pushing away the root cause of what the real issue may be. And how to truly tackle it once and for all. People will avoid what is difficult, and in turn will then chase what is easy, but that doesn't lead to the same result or what they are expecting. So just because it is easy doesn't mean it gives you what you actually want long term. Often quick fix mentality can be paired with burnout and fatigue. I see this quite often, is that people will take on a new challenge or a new project and they will go gung-ho. They will just catapult themselves full speed at a new fitness journey or a new nutrition endeavor, and it's like they're doing this all or nothing. It's like black and white, you know, I'm dieting really heavily, I'm starving, I'm so hungry, and I'm doing, you know, hours of cardio daily. And the sustainability of that, not just from a perspective of time management, but also lifestyle, your hormones as well, like what that's going to do to your stress levels, smashing your body that dramatically in one hit, generally finds that you will burn out. You will fatigue. Hard and fast doesn't necessarily mean faster results, and it doesn't actually lead your body to a good place. We must treat the human body with care, okay? And when we do make changes, often they need to be quite subtle in the beginning and as we progress, because it's going to be a large shock to the system to give it far too much in one go. Obviously, this can also come with no sustainable plan, method, or practice to be able to keep up that level of energy or effort. Okay, so if you feel like you can't keep up with your current nutrition and training regime, it's probably because it's not sustainable. It's probably because it's not required. Okay, if your body is telling you this doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. It might look like getting excited to take on a project that is new, flashy, and elusive, like a bodybuilding show, but not necessarily considering the level of commitment required or even applying the effort required to finish the project. So I often see this with comp prep clients or people who want to prep. I get inquiries about it all the time. I'd love to do a show. And one of the first things I say is, are you sure? Are you sure you want to prep? Do you understand the considerations that need to be made? Do you understand the commitment, the level of commitment? Do you understand that having a coach is not going to make you an athlete? Okay. So it would look like jumping on the bandwagon with the latest fad fat loss diet, buying cryptocurrency just because everyone else is doing it. Okay. I'm not saying cryptocurrency is bad, but we often see these trends come through in different industries where people will literally jump on because it's popular or someone else is doing it. And it becomes this almost like an impulse, you know, click happy type of process. Oh, I'm going to buy that. Oh, I'm going to sign up for that. I'm going to sign up to that new gym. You know, first it was F45, CrossFit, FitStop. What's the next one? Jumping in an ice bath. This is actually one of recent that's been so interesting to watch, but jumping in an ice bath because you think there's going to be an immediate benefit without researching, and I mean significantly researching the evidence to support such a practice and having a look at the evidence that opposes it as well. You know, having a perspective where you see both sides and you actually look at the true pros and cons and whether or not the sources that it's coming from are going to be reliable. Because a lot of the time, the information provided for these particular, I'm going to say, they are fads, they are fashionable, or even what we call pseudoscience, is they come and go really quickly. And you notice, for example, the paleo diet came and went really quickly. The keto diet, it will only last and it's started to die down now because people are learning, oh, it's not probably the best way to do things, right? A lot of the nutrition research we did in sports nutrition, we look back in the textbooks, a lot of the pioneered days of sports nutrition, and sports nutrition applies to everyday people. It's not just about athletes, it's about fat loss, it's about that process, right? Exercise and nutrition working together. In the early days, we discovered a lot of the basics, the bare fundamentals which we've built on, okay, since. And if you can imagine like a pyramid, this big base of the pyramid is where we learned a lot of those really fundamental principles, things like what vitamins and minerals we need to have to prevent deficiencies and sicknesses, okay? And then you can see that by no coincidence that as the years have gone on, yes, we've developed and we've learnt more, but now we're at the tip of the pyramid where we're learning a lot of things, yes, still about sports nutrition and processes, but we're also learning more about what doesn't work, okay? What supplements are probably not very necessary. And all the quick fixes that people keep throwing into the mix of things are quickly being thrown out. So, obviously not very exciting for those who like the idea of a new fad or pseudoscience or something to jump on that sounds exciting that no one else is trying. But the reality of it is that a lot of the things that we have learnt with many principles in life, the bare fundamental basics that were true years ago remain true now with additions of things that we've learned since and developed on. And we often too disprove quite a few things, like initially studies will come out about certain supplements where there might be some evidence to support it, and then they're studied more deeply and more deeply and more deeply, and we find out as sports nutritionists that it's not the case, probably not as reliable, the evidence, and we need to keep researching. So this is why the ice bath phenomena has not caught my attention at all, okay? Until it's supported in a university level study, where it is being put into degrees for people to learn and studies. I'm still studying at the moment what we call our CBD update and assessments that we do every year, which does have very reliable science, inserted into our minds in our education. But until that comes on board, right? Until we go, yes, we absolutely know without a doubt that this is going to benefit X, Y, Z, then it can't be supported. And there's a reason for it, because again, the constant chop and change of trying to find the next big thing, the next new thing, will only work if there is a sustainable approach where it can continue to be used for decades, yes? And with lots of study to prove that it absolutely, without a doubt, is something that is going to help you. But unfortunately, and I'm going to say fortunately for those who understand the process, unfortunately there is no thing that you can put in your mouth, okay, or that you can take other than, yes, illicit substances. But again, it's not going to be, I say this all the time, illicit substances are not going to outdo hard work. They're not going to outdo dieting, You can't just jump on PEDs and fat burners and go, oh, it's just going to happen. I don't even have to exercise. I don't have to eat very well. I'll just eat what I want. No, you need to pair things together that work well together. But if you want to remain somebody who is not using illicit substances, which most people probably will, want to do things that are not illegal, you will want to understand that there are very bare, basic fundamental principles which you must apply consistently, instead of quick fixes, consistently, to be able to achieve an end result. So it might look like signing up for a new sport, or as I said, or a bodybuilding show, any type of sport. It could be anything, a hobby. Don't get me wrong, I love people trying new things, okay? But you've started it, you haven't thought about the physical commitment required long term. You haven't thought about the difficulty of it. You haven't thought about, all you thought about is just the pros, but not the things the cons, the things that are going to be difficult and you're going to have to continue onwards with if you want to achieve, success. So much of this is, I want something that makes me feel instantly better right now. Wanting to make fast money by throwing cash at an investment you don't have any background information on, okay? But you've decided to go all in on. So again, very rash decisions, which I'm sure would pay off in some instances, but the likelihood is fairly slim if you've not done your research prior to diving into it. Drinking lemon water for fat loss and digestive health because you saw it on a TikTok trend. I can't even take that whole sentence. I can't take seriously because lemon's interesting. It's acidic outside of the body and alkaline in. But the benefits of it are going to be probably more for things like immune function rather than digestive gut health. And yes, we do have a tie-in with digestive gut health and immune function, but lemon juice is not going to repair your gut health, okay? It's just going to contribute some sort of micronutrients towards your entire profile of vitamin mineral intake. So, having a liposuction procedure, it's actually probably less common these days, to reduce your body fat, only to go in back into the obviously high body fat phases after realizing that it is solely reliant upon your calorie intake, okay? So I've seen, probably in the past more so, but people who got liposuction are like, yeah, I've got all this fat removed, I've moved it from my boobs and I put it on my bum, or I've removed it from my bum and I put it on my boobs, or whatever process. And the interesting thing is, like, fat relocation, as much as obviously the people who are performing the surgery are going to support it, fat relocation is kind of like moving something from one area of your body to another, or liposuction, for example. But if you continue to eat the same calories and the same volume of food that you were eating previously, and I mean volume as in volume of calories, because we all know that salads aren't going to be super high in calories unless they're dosed with sauces and greasy things and et cetera, But moving fat around the body or taking fat off the body by manual manipulation, so surgery, we'll still see a return to that fat gaining back, because if you imagine the habits that you had previously are still in place. Okay, and the same with fat switching as well. If you move it from one area to the other, your body genetically will naturally burn fat from the same areas over and over again. It does change slightly as you age, as in you probably store fat in more areas rather than others. It could be literally because of a hormonal change. It's not that drastic. But if you try and move fat around the body, okay, it's not going to stay there, because again, your body will want to go back to homeostasis. And the only thing that's going to allow you to move body fat off your body evenly, or as evenly as possible, is going to be a calorie deficit. So, and obviously the surgery for removing body fat is in fact not permanent. We know that, okay? The calorie deficit determines how much fat you will gain or lose. Calorie intake. Seeking out other body modifications in order to improve yourself, perhaps to give yourself more confidence, without necessarily considering whether you need it, whether it's actually what you want for yourself, or if it's something to band-aid a deeper issue. So, it could be if you go and get a breast augmentation, or you might go and get a tattoo, or all sorts of things, nose jobs, the list goes on. And if you're not thinking about whether you're doing this for other people, if it's not for you, and you just think, oh, look, this will make me prettier or more attractive, or, I might win a show if I've had a breast augmentation, which is a lie, you don't need them. But going and doing this without thinking about it, just thinking, this will make me feel better, this will fix all my problems. So these are all great examples, because it's not just about, using the latest supplement or jumping on a bandwagon with pseudoscience. It's also about lots of other decisions in your life that may be fueled by instant, quick fix decision-making processes. So you could be trying a new exercise at the gym just because it's been popularized recently, perhaps advertised as a fat loss exercise, I love that, to target a certain area to tone up. But it doesn't actually do that, considering whether it's even been beneficial for your goals, okay? So whether doing that exercise is even going to align with what you've been trying to achieve. There was years ago a big craze with Zumba. Everyone was like, do Zumba and you get a big butt, okay? But it's not always the case. You're not going to get a big bum from doing just Zumba, and some people genetically have a bigger tush and they do Zumba, and they might work a little bit more of their glutes, but there have been numerous fads that have come and gone throughout the years that people are forgetting very quickly because they're no longer in the spotlight. Exercise has come into it. I find it really intriguing. In the early days of my own resistance training, it was like, they said do squats, just squats, barbell squats, do you squat, bro, was this huge trend. You have to squat to get a big butt. And in reality, yes, obviously you're using your glutes when you're squatting. Yes, absolutely. But there are other exercises that can target the glutes more specifically. And again, you can't lose fat from a certain body part just by doing an exercise that works that body part. It is these short-lived moments in life which can feel exhilarating at the time, provide little to no benefit in the long run, okay? And often you find yourself distracting yourself with these fleeting moments just because you're bored with life and you want something to shift your focus to. Or perhaps because where you are currently is uncomfortable or becoming difficult to continue onwards with. So we'll often use easy, quick solutions that we think are solutions as a distraction away from something that is difficult, deep, nitty-gritty, not overly pleasurable every second of the day, but we know is getting us closer to our goal. And that, again, can tie back into self-sabotage. So quick fix thinking can often rid you and rip you of the potential of what you actually want to accomplish long-term, and you lose sight of that very quickly, okay? Obviously, the sad component of all of this is that companies or businesses know how to play into the quick fix mentality of the consumer. Okay? Companies and businesses selling products, concepts, pseudoscience, new gyms, new exercises, etc., and not even that, personalities, personas on social media, etc. They know what gets people interested, and it's usually those words: quick, easy, simple, fast, fat burning, blast. And it's this really heavily marketed and advertised quick fix mentality they're playing into because they know they can get people with it. They know the average consumer wants something fast. Do we not? Most people would say they do. I like to adopt a different approach. I want things slow. I want things consistent. Anything that's too fast to me seems dangerous. Okay? Haste is not something that I align myself with in any facet in life. They utilize cunning advertising with wording such as I said, quick results, get results, today, fat burning, instant, reward. Reward, big reward. Crazy, right? And they get us. Well, they don't get me, but they get most of the population. Okay, this is how companies get big. They get big by advertising to people, and it's everywhere. You should always assume if a business is making money from you, they're trying to. Okay? Think about their incentive for advertising and pushing this product towards you. So the chances of winning the lottery are literally less likely than giving birth to quadruplets. Crazy, right? You're more likely to have 4 babies than you are to win the lottery. Now, if you think about that, most people would assume, I'm not going to have quadruplets. Yes, but a lot of people want to win the lottery. And it's interesting that I believe entertaining that idea is entertaining a facade. Yes, it's possible, but the possibilities are so damn slim. And it's actually a lot less possible than quadruplets. And yet, for some reason, people still gamble and believe it's possible one day they might win. Someone does, but the chances of it being you, we're not special. The chances of instant gratification and a true quick fix with most things in life are just as slim, and if anything, incredibly detrimental. Okay? Chasing the quickest, easiest path will see you landslide back to where you started pretty quickly. Usually the quickest and fastest fix is going to have the larger ramification, negative ramification, long-term. Long-term, negatively impacting your actual goals, okay? So cheating the system will never work. It's okay to work smarter, not harder in some instances, absolutely, but purposefully trying to cheat a system that works incredibly well and take shortcuts, etc., will, and the thing is too, if no one else is taking shortcuts, maybe think about the fact that you might have to do the hard slog. I've seen examples of quick fix mentality in clients specifically early on in their health journey, okay? It definitely happens more heavily in the introduction to health, nutrition, fitness. 100%, we've all done it. Yes? What can I do? What can I take? How do I make this happen faster? Because we're frustrated with ourselves. We've reached a point where we're like, oh, I'm fed up. I need to make a change. But we unfortunately see the changes we need to make with our health, fitness, and nutrition is very drastic, very quick, very fast, and because we don't like sitting with discomfort for too long. Once we're action human beings, right? We crave growth and change when we want the change. But the problem is that with the way that we have engineered our society, everything has to be quick. You have to consume it quickly. Look at Reels, for example, right? Our attention span used to be so much longer, and it's gone from being, it was like a couple of minutes, a minute, 30 seconds, 9 seconds. There's a reason why 9-second Reels or under 10 seconds are trending. It's because people's attention spans have shortened. And we're feeding into it. Sometimes we see that it's paired with this idea. They want to see results instantly. If they don't, then they tire of the process, okay? And fairly quickly as well. People get fed up with hard work very easily. Sometimes it can be seen in the form of hyperfixation on weight changes or fluctuations, so people will directly relate their disappointment to their weight, not actually to being responsible for their food choices or anything like that, just their weight. Why isn't my weight changing? No. What have you been doing about it? Oh, I've been eating healthy. Have you been taking a calculated approach? Have you got a plan? Is it sustainable? Etc., etc. But they'll hyperfixate on the weight changes, the fluctuations, especially women. We go up and down through the month because of our hormones. It's very normal. It's very natural for us to go up and down by a couple kilos. Not of body fat if you're following a calorie deficit, but definitely a fluid, okay? And we have issues with that, and then that can trigger us into then finding a quick fix. So sometimes that will trigger a binge eating episode if your weight goes up in a day without actually thinking about logically what's happening. So we look for the quick fix, the snacking, what can I put in my mouth right now that's going to make me feel better right now because everything is shit and, I've had a really rough day, okay? And then we have difficulty taking responsibility for our own actions, including the nutrition and exercise adherence. So we look at everything else around us, every type of external thing we can look at. What is fucked our week up? This has happened, this has happened, this happened, instead of thinking, okay, hold on, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do for this, the rest of this week or every day that's going to change the path moving forward, as opposed to what's the thing I can do right now quickly to fix everything? Nothing. You can't fix everything in one go. So, and as a coach who's worked in this field for quite some time, we can find some deep frustration in explaining this concept to clients, that it's going to be their small efforts every single day that add up over time, which will contribute towards a bigger picture. There is no coincidence that coaches are saying the same thing across the board, right? Be consistent, be consistent, be consistent, be consistent. You're probably sick of hearing it, but that's the answer. Be consistent, okay? Consistency over sudden changes and quick fixes. The more significant goals that a person has for themselves, okay, this will take significant effort, sure. Not necessarily in short bursts, but over an invested time, consistent effort daily. And that's the kicker. If you're currently looking for something simple to solve all your problems, the answer is it's just not that simple. It doesn't mean it has to be complicated, but it's not as simple as a one-size-fits-all band-aid for a bullet hole, type of concept. And if you want a simple solution, you're going to get a pretty simple and below average result, okay? If you want to run a marathon, but you're not willing to pace yourself, and you sprint for the first few hundred meters or a kilometer even, if you can do that, you're going to burn out. You must pace yourself with anything that takes time. It does take time. And people say, how long? How long's a piece of string? How much dedication can you give? How many mistakes are you going to make? Don't beat yourself up. But all you can focus on is improving as the journey progresses. Especially obviously when it comes to wanting to achieve something that in previous times, with previous track records of those who've achieved a very similar thing, will testify that it takes time, okay? Consistency, practice, commitment, dedication, and not the sum of a short-lived heroic effort. You don't need to be a hero to achieve what you want to achieve in life. You just need to be determined. You just need to be committed, okay? You just need to be patient. So what does this mean for shifting your mentality away from the quick fixes that we see shoved in our faces every day, okay? How do we get around this? It's like, okay, cool, we know the problem, we know what it looks like. Of course, Mariah, but how do we work on changing that, shifting our focus, shifting the way that we think and the way we operate? We now know how to identify the problem, okay? How do we shift? A way to a more sustainable approach for health, fitness, nutrition, mindset, and life goals. Generally, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, okay? Especially in this type of industry, in this world. If it's taken the internet by storm, very quickly, without any sort of scientific evidence to prove or support or back the claims, then you probably need to take a very good look at what the professionals have to say. Okay, what the actual qualified, registered, insured professionals have to say. People who have done the hard yards, have gone to university, who, are qualified in their field, not just going, oh, you know what, I just know, mate, I just know, just trust me. I've done it myself. It worked really well, okay? And that means across the board, professionals who are well-versed, educated in their industries, professionals who have a standpoint that is a professional standpoint, not personal, on the particular scheme, trend, or new diet. And trust me, we find out about all of it. We really do. We find out about all of it because people send us this stuff all the time. 99.9% of the time, you're going to find that there is some sort of underlying reason as to why the product, fad, or practice is being amplified by the professionals who have a hidden agenda to endorse it, as I said previously, or fame, or clout, or money, right? So they're looking for credit. They want to be the next big thing, and sometimes a really easy way to get everybody to pay attention to is if you're doing something really outrageous. There's a woman on the internet, I don't often like to reference individual people, but there's one on the internet I saw recently who has 2 million followers and she has nothing but a fruit-based diet. Don't get me wrong, okay? Eating fruit is good for you, but completely fruit-based will see that you will miss out on your amino acids that you definitely require to regenerate muscle tissue and to build muscle tissue as well. Not just for aesthetic reasons, but like to prevent atrophy, long term. So there are a multitude of reasons why you should not be eating just fruit. Yes, fruit is good in your diet, but not just fruit. There's this whole just meat diet. And it's interesting, it's like they're all preaching on about how this particular just this food is going to solve all your problems. It's going to be anti-inflammatory. It's going to, you're going to lose all this fat, etc., etc. Some of them aren't even following it properly. They're just doing it because they want attention. They want someone to look at what they're doing, and they know that you are suckers for it. Okay? And there's, as I said in previous podcasts, there's nothing that exciting about a calorie deficit. Nobody's jumping up and down going, look at this cool thing. It's maths. It's boring as shit. Maths and science, actually. Sports nutrition is mostly maths and science. Obviously literature in there, there's definitely literature and evidence-based practice and behavioral connotations and everything like that comes into it. But like scientists, people who study science, it's fucking boring. It really is. Exciting for us, very boring for the people it's going to benefit. Okay? So obviously there is a reason. There's usually a reason. People want to push something at you for a reason. Try to picture whatever goal or dream you have in your mind as something that is far off in the distance. So I want you to try this, right? Just go, that thing I want is all the way over there. It's all the way over there. And that probably seems very disheartening, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be disheartened by how long it may take you to get there, okay? What else are you doing with your life, Why are you in such a rush, And if you were to give yourself time and realize that this can happen in the background, on the back burner, you'd realize that this is why it has to be a lifestyle, because it does take a while. So it's got to be something that is sustainable, yeah? So obviously this doesn't necessarily mean you need to be like, thinking to yourself, shit, now this is going to take me time. What do I do? I thought I could do this quickly. And then you feel crappy about it. You think, I don't want to do it at all then, right? It's like, again, this is why we need to shift your mentality away from quick fix thinking. If you become anxious about the process, the timeline, etc., you will fail, okay? You will fail if you self-sabotage because you think that you're not going to get it done quickly enough. You shouldn't be getting anything done that is worth it fast. It's not, fast results are not the best results. So shifting your focus towards the smaller efforts that you contribute towards that larger goal daily, okay, is what we're trying to achieve. This ties back into the podcast about micro and macro goals. So this is why you must focus on small things daily to celebrate and accomplish approaching a slow and steady wins the race attitude. If you want to if you want to achieve permanent results, it has to be a lifestyle, okay? In a sense, if you can't sustain your current level of training, nutrition, etc., then you're not going to be able to sustain the results. If what you are doing now is not working for you mentally, physically, if you're feeling like absolutely knackered, all of the above, then you're not going to be able to keep doing it. So you've got to think about what's going to work for you in your lifestyle, not a fad diet. It might look like getting a meal plan from a coach. It might look like macro tracking. It might look like learning a little bit before you start tracking macros. It might, that's what my Fierce journey is about. It's about learning how to track macros. It is a sample of what it's like to track macros and to have your own food flexibility and to learn about nutrition. But, this doesn't mean that you have to live in a calorie deficit. More so that the case is that you need to be able to be in a position where you're not going to constantly regress back to what you were doing before, where you're not going to then fall back into those old habits, okay? Where you're not going to then go, well, this was too hard. It wasn't something I could stick to. Bugger it. I'm just going to do what I was doing before. I don't care, I hope I can keep my results, and it's not going to happen. So obviously we don't want you to regress into the way that you were eating, living, or perhaps not exercising enough previously. And And then obviously, until you're okay with this concept, until you're okay with it needing to be sustainable, you're probably going to continue to deny and fight the process. We don't want you to be in that position. We don't want you to be in a position where you're going, oh, groan, moan, oh, I just wish this happened faster, and why can't I see changes now? And I wish there was something I could take. It's like, well, until you accept there isn't, you're just going to torture yourself. You are going to continue to regress, start and stop and start and stop, deny that you need to put work in, blame everything else, etc., etc. Look for those quick fixes. And then wonder, why me? Why am I always stuck in this position? Understand that change doesn't need to look like drastically flipping your life upside down, but small and manageable changes daily. This might look like trying to go to the gym at least 2 or 3 times a week in the beginning, and to sustain that for a couple of months before trying to increase from there. Sustainable change does not always start with drastic changes. In fact, it never does. If you think about it this way, if you're trying to change your lifestyle from where it is currently, okay, you're not going to be able to sprint there in a heartbeat. Okay, you're not going to be able to make all these drastic changes overnight. No one ever does. Humans are habitual creatures, and we get stuck in habits or cycles. And changing habits or cycles takes a pretty long time, as short as 8 days and as long as 365, depending on the habit. But you can imagine something very small, like, an 8-day duration to change a habit will be very, very small. Something very tiny, minute, maybe change the time that you train. Yeah? That might even take longer. But on average, we have these habits, and we are a sum of our habits. So thinking that you're going to instantly change every single habit in your life and you're just going to click your fingers overnight and it's just going to happen, it's going to work, you are delirious. If you need to change significantly from where you are currently to where you want to be, it's going to take time, and there's going to be lots of moments in the middle where you're going to have to slowly introduce new concepts and slowly introduce new habits once you've got the other ones mastered, or maybe just small versions of each habit. So instead of 6 exercise sessions a week, it might look like 2 or 3. Okay? It might even just look like 1. I did a single exercise session for a whole year. 1 weekly. I did 1 exercise session weekly. Mind you, I'm not entirely sure what that 1 session was doing, but it started the fire inside me. People will assume that my 10-year journey training has been just consistency the whole way. The first 2 years of my fitness journey were the hardest because I was going to the gym once a week and I didn't start addressing my actual nutrition needs and requirements until, I'm going to say, probably a year in. And even then, it took me years to get that right because then I started under-eating too much. So probably I'd say really started understanding nutrition on a better level after the 3-year mark and became really, really well-versed in nutrition by the 5 and 6-year mark. So it's interesting to see that. The timeline for understanding and changing habits is actually rather long. So in order to shift ourselves away from that, okay, that type of habitual, being stuck in these habits, right? We need to take a conservative approach. So, and obviously with trying to shift away from the quick fix, thinking we've got to change it in 24 hours, I've got to instantly become a Fitspo, right? We have to take a conservative approach. We have to look at slowly phasing out, as I said, and introducing different methods, right, at different levels, so that we do not feel overwhelmed with the drastic changes, and so that we do not feel like we were going to give up because we might be still stuck in some of that previous mindset. Basically, it's very difficult to stick to something if it's not manageable in the beginning, and most people will give up if it feels like it's too hard. So don't make it too hard for yourself, right? Logically, don't make it so hard. Understand. And also too, if you don't need to think that the harder it is, the quicker you're going to achieve results. Okay? You just need to think, what can I stick to for now? Am I doing okay with this? Okay, now I can introduce a little bit more, yes. And you audit your lifestyle as often as you need to. But if you try and go hard and fast, and you're trying to smash yourself in the beginning, it's going to be very easy to give up because it is going to be too hard. It's going to be too much of a contrast to the previous lifestyle. So understand your different tolerance levels are going to look, a certain way now as they are in the future. They're going to change. I used to be a person who drank and smoked a lot. I did both of those things. Now, quitting that, I did overnight quit drinking and smoking at one point. I went cold turkey. But prior to that, I've been thinking about it quite a lot. And even from there as well, being able to resist going back to it was exceedingly difficult. Now, not so much, because it is a new habit. It is something that I have ingrained in myself. So we either have to, initially in the beginning, if we're changing habits, deal with the fact it's going to be very different, okay? But eventually it will become the new normal. And obviously in a few months and years versus say like 5 years time, if you think about if you remain consistent across that time, envision yourself where you're going to be. That's what I do. I'm not a person who's like, oh, this is what I'm going to do in the next, obviously I have to plan, but next 10 days, next 6 months, just living paycheck to paycheck, because obviously I don't have a paycheck, I pay myself, but my clients pay me. But I actually learned years ago, it's like the whole 5-year plan, but I don't just look at that. I look at the next day, the next week, the next month, the next 3 months, the next 6 months, the next 8 months, the next year. And I look at these timelines of like checkpoint, 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 right? You can be a little bit late, be a little bit ahead with some of them as well, but all in all, having that timeline, that constant running timeline to head towards. And the 5 to 10 to 20-year goal, and where do you see yourself when you're older, actually helps you move away from the instantaneous quick fixes. And write it down. I've said in previous podcasts, write this down, I've got it all written down. I've got it in my phone, in my notes. This is where all of my goals are, everything I want. And it's interesting, I've said this in previous podcasts, I've achieved them. Everything I've written down, I've achieved. And it's not because I'm a superhuman, it's because I was like, cool, if that's in front of my face every day, I can't ignore it. So you might find in a couple of years, it becomes a daily habit for you to go to the gym. Okay, it's normal now and it feels weird if you don't. You'll get some form of exercise, okay? Whereas right now it might be difficult with the way that your life and your time management is structured. You may be watching way too much TV and you could be replacing that with exercise. Nothing changes if nothing changes. Cliche, but it's true. If you're not looking to internally change a process, which fundamentally is required to change your life circumstances, you must change on the inside to change the outside. There is nothing externally that's going to have any sort of significant influence over that. No sort of supplement, no sort of quick fix, nothing you can buy, okay? Nothing anyone else can do for you. Even PTs, even trainers that there to motivate you. It's not going to change fundamentally what needs to shift inside. That's your job. Much of shifting away from a quick fix mentality is looking at some shitty habits that you might have got yourself stuck in the cycle of. Identifying them when you're giving into quick fixes, okay? Hold yourself accountable and responsible, or perhaps entertain the idea of them. Wouldn't it be nice to light up a cigarette? Wouldn't it be nice to have a cocktail? It would be, but also it's nice for what, a couple of minutes? What does it achieve for you long term? Think about what it achieves long term. And a lot of people talk about, but if I don't live in the moment, how am I going to enjoy life? You can live in the moment and not entertain the idea of substances or spending money or doing things that are detrimental for your health. Go sit on the beach and enjoy the sunrise. That's living in the moment. That's actually living in the moment. Spend time with your family, your friends, go for a workout. That's living in the moment. That is the type of stuff that's going to contribute to a happier, healthier, better version of you. And obviously then identifying these habits that are attached to the quick fixes. So, okay, cool, I know this thing that feels like a quick fix. What am I doing consistently that's now a habit? It's just like second nature to do this. Okay, catch it in your hand and go, right, that's what that is. Replacing them with habits that might not feel as exciting at the time, okay, but have an exciting result over, say, weeks, months, and even years. Get addicted to the long term. Get addicted to the long term, because when you get to that big ass goal at the end of the rainbow, I'm gonna tell you what, it's a giant pot. The incredible feeling you get from accomplishing long-term goals shits all over short-term goal satisfaction. Yes, those little short-term goals, or even short-term goals, for example, they will still give you satisfaction, right? But doing small things to make yourself feel better now actually doesn't give you the same sense of satisfaction of what achieving a really big goal does. It feels euphoric. And obviously then there's going to be a payoff. As I've said in previous podcasts, there's always this payoff that you get from that long-term goal, and it's magical. Again, this ties back in with the concept of seeking delayed gratification versus short-term gratification. So if you find that this podcast is really handy, go back through my podcasts and have a listen to the short-term versus long-term gratification. Very, very similar concepts, but slightly differently worded. Obviously, the only difference between people who are able to achieve long-term goals and results and those who can't is their commitment and resilience. Their commitment to small daily efforts instead of dramatic once-off bursts of motivation or energy contributed. So people who achieve long-term goals follow a sequence of events that lead them to where they want to be. And their resilience when they face a difficult situation in the middle of their journey, okay? And we don't want to have this power hour or a couple of perfect days, okay? I'd much rather, if someone was to say to me, would you rather have one amazing hour of your life, like it just feels awesome, and the rest of your days feel shitty because you've just chased that 1 hour? Or let's say a couple of my days have been perfect streaks and I've done nothing wrong and nowhere outside of my food and everything's just amazing, completely perfect for 3 days, but the rest of the week shit because I went too hard and too fast and expected too much of myself. But if someone said to me, look, do you know what? Things are going to be pretty good 70 to 80% of the time. You know, you're gonna almost like hum. You know, it's not going to feel epic, but you're just going to hum. And then the other 20 to 30% of the time is going to feel pretty horseshit. And then, but let's say at the end of all of that, you're going to get this awesome, amazing experience that is just so much better than that power hour. I can guarantee you that I will always choose the option that gives me something that is bigger, you know? And it is not, doesn't feel awesome right now, but it is bigger. Sometimes roadblocks of frustration even hit us at the start of our journeys or in the middle, or people go, oh my God, of course it would happen. It's like, no, this happens to everyone. Much of persevering past these points is realizing that shit literally happens to everyone. It happens not to take away from people's problems, but it happens to every single one of us. Shit happens. So there has to be a solution in finding a way forward away from the problem. Okay? Shit's gonna happen anyway. How do we move forward? Not staying stuck on a problem, treating it as an obstacle and then giving up entirely, only finding yourself back at square one. You are not alone in your struggles, but you do not necessarily need to isolate or alienate yourself either. Okay, so we often need to put ourselves in a position where it's like, okay, if I made a mistake or something happened, maybe have a chat to somebody or put it down on paper, take responsibility for it. It's not going to make you a terrible person. This can help you move forward, okay? In reality, you're going to hit the wall eventually. Something's going to happen. I'm so sorry to say that, but I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but something will happen. Something. You get sick, your kid gets sick, you know, you have sleep deprivation, you forgot to buy your groceries for the week. The list goes on. Lots of things. We're human. Things will happen. And you're going to have to learn resilience. That's what resilience is. How to get past that and continue on your path, not to stay stuck on it. Stop blaming everyone or everything around you for your lack of contribution towards what you want for your life, okay? So certainly something that we can get stuck in the habit of is it's everyone else, it's not me. It's why I can't lose fat. It's just everything else in my life except for my contribution. Sometimes if we take the responsibility out of the hands of others and put it back into ours, we can actually give ourselves an empowered sense of direction towards achieving what we want to achieve for ourselves. It's like, hold on, if you want control, take it back. Stop giving it to other people. You know, stop leaving it up to the universe. If we put the responsibility in the hands of the universe, this can often leave us looking for easy ways out of our current circumstances instead of our own contribution and energy, decisions, behaviors towards what we are really seeking long term. So when people say, oh, it's not meant to be, or, you know, oh no, if it happens, it happens. It's like, hold on, what can you consciously contribute? What can you consciously contribute? It's probably going to be a little bit more effective than just leave it up to the gods. On that note though, try to surround yourself with people who have long-term success at the forefront of their mind mentally, okay? So their mentality is focused around how do we get to where we want to be in life? Perhaps seek out a coach or a friend who can keep you accountable. This is why like 50% of coaching is accountability. until you can be self-accountable for your goals, okay? I try to teach people to become self-accountable. It's no coincidence that some of my clients, in fact, most of them, just end up going, I can do this. I'm good. I don't need a coach. That's the end goal, right? It might actually help having somebody to answer to, though, who is invested in you and what you want for yourself, especially when you find out that, falling off track is something that's going to happen. And sometimes you can get stuck in your own head in that process too. And when you lose your way, we put you back on the tracks again. A little bit of support and guidance can actually go a very long way. Understand and come to terms with the idea that an overnight success is not a thing. There is no such thing as overnight change in any instance, especially not notable change. For example, I want you to think of your health and fitness goals like watching paint dry or watching a plant grow. If you put that much pressure on it and you sit there forever concentrated on what is happening right in front of you, you're probably going to go insane. If you put a paint layer on every single day and go and do something else to occupy your time while it dries, you'll actually find eventually that you'll have completed the wall and the paint has dried. So it's like, there's no coincidence that this process feels slow and you're etching your way towards what you want to achieve for yourself. It's because that it is. Don't let your lack of instant results deter you from continuing with the process. You don't know how far you can go if you don't allow yourself to go there. If you don't pave the way, how are you meant to get through? If you are not pursuing your goals or actively putting effort into them every day and you give up on them, okay, because you're frustrated, just because you're frustrated, you haven't seen changes in 1 day, 1 week, 2 weeks, or even 8 weeks, whether or not you've been putting in the effort, I don't know. Okay, so you need to think about, if you're not actually putting effort in, why are you frustrated? Cultivate patience. If you're one of those people who says you are not an incredibly patient person, it's actually a decision. It's not a personality trait. Okay? Remind yourself daily that you are a human being and that you are not exempt from the rules of life, that your efforts will contribute directly to your end result, your daily efforts. Often this means that you will have to be okay with not seeking out experiences or instant changes, that are going to give you happy vibes straight away. Stop expecting them to be instant as well. You will possibly have a much better time with being patient if you don't have an expectation of an instant result. Give yourself enough time, which is, yes, going to look like months and years to see significant change in anything that you endeavor to accomplish in life. Nothing worth it is going to be instant. If you look for examples of this in everyday life, it's going to apply to everything from your education, to your career, to your health and fitness goals, to your relationship, your finances, your friendships, and even things like travel as well. Having a bucket list of places to go, you still require the finances to get there, and it takes time to travel from country to country. So if you have these huge goals in your life, big goals require consistent and significant effort. So starting today, stop buying into every quick fix thrown at you, okay? Everything advertised to you daily is not an excuse to jump on the bandwagon with how it makes you feel in the moment. Get excited about your long-term goals and your direct effort and energy that you can put into these. Consult a professional sports nutritionist or dietitian regarding any sort of supplementation before deciding to take it, and be careful who you speak to regarding the supplementation, specifically if it is in their best interest for you to buy it from them, or if they're using it to mask their lack of education and qualification. So people are going, take this supplement, but they're not qualified. Oh, but it's going to do amazing things and it's got these amazing effects and yada, 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 and I'm the best and I'm different from everybody else. Probably too good to be true. You'd be surprised how many supplementations, products, processes, and even fad diets and recovery methods are scientifically an entire load of shit. Usually backed heavily by those who will make the most amount of money, achieve the most amount of success, or get the most amount of attention for pushing that particular item or method. Set realistic goals for yourself, especially setting smaller goals in a larger picture. It's okay to dream big. What you're going to have to do is make small milestones along the way towards that bigger picture. Otherwise, you will probably be overwhelmed in the process and lose sight of the small wins that you actually make along the way. This can see that you get bored or frustrated rather easily, lose concentration entirely. It might look like achieving particular goals with your lifts in the gym or reaching a certain body composition over a longer period of time, instead of accomplishing it in a shorter window, only to leave yourself unprepared, disappointed, or disheartened. Then you will very easily give up on something that actually needs a lot more time than a couple of weeks or months to see significant changes. Stop expecting to lose 1 kilo a week. I still don't know why this is a benchmark for so many people, but this is a great example of a common misconception in fat loss. At best, I would see that a male client over 100 kilos might lose maybe a kilo a week plus in the beginning of a fat loss journey. And this will begin to slow down over time due to the ratio of percentage of body fat. Okay, when we weigh less, the percentage of body fat might be the same, but obviously we're losing less weight because our ratios are going to change. 1% of 100 kilos is 1 kilo. 1% of 50 kilos is 500 grams. Yes, same percentage of body fat, much less weight in numerical terms. It's an interesting concept, isn't it? And the lower we get in body fat and the less that we weigh in general, we actually burn less naturally because we aren't as big. We're not moving as much mass around. Think of a little car versus a big truck. Big truck's going to use more fuel. So obviously for female clients, the rate of loss is going to be slightly lower than men. So it's around, honestly, I say 300 to 500 grams weekly is actually incredibly high due to the fact that women naturally sit higher in body fat than men do. And we usually weigh less than men do as well. So we see that that's where we're kind of disadvantaged numerically. We also have a slightly, obviously, slower metabolism, okay, metabolic rate, which means it's obviously not viable or healthy for us to lose large amounts of body fat quickly. Usually this will come with some atrophy, so muscle wastage, if we are attempting to lose large amounts of weight quickly because the body does not always decide to burn just body fat when underfed and overworked. So stop diving into everything 120% from the beginning only to find yourself burning out. Things like doing excessive cardio or underfeeding your calories because you think it's going to be beneficial to your goals far more than, say, I don't know, just following a standard calorie deficit and, just standard 10,000 steps a day, etc. Making it happen faster because you're doing more. The amount of times I've seen clients doing too much, and unfortunately this can lead to binge eating episodes, burnout, a very unhealthy relationship with food, terrible sleep and low energy availability, which means you won't even be able to put much effort into your training sessions anyway. There is a reason why we prescribe a reasonable amount of training sessions weekly and a reasonable calorie deficit. We don't prescribe double sessions, and there's always going to be something like implementing those rest days in there, okay? And obviously the calorie deficit, we only have it set where it's enough to lose body fat, but where you're still going to have your quality of life, you're still going to be able to be nourished as well. You're not malnourished, but not so much, obviously, to the point where you lose all of your energy and come to a standstill. And again, that risk of binge eating increases. And then obviously things like only implementing cardio where necessary, more specifically for those training more cardio-based activities, events, or that specific sport, for example. So if it is an endurance-based sport that you're engaged in, makes sense to do endurance training. Outside of that though, more is not always more, and falling back into this type of behavior can see drastic swings back and forth between kicking your goals and crashing hard into a wall, ending in self-sabotage and serious health ramifications. And obviously, mentally very disappointing and disheartening. To finish up, okay, outside of I suppose things that are going to be very quick fix and instant changes, very small things like you run out of milk, you go buy some milk. It's a pretty easy solution. You need to be okay with embracing, learning, growing, and improving. You are not going to be completely perfect at everything all at once. And if you are perfect at everything, if you think you are, then, you will still have areas to improve on. We all do. We're things that we want in life that we're not going to have everything figured out. Even having the education I've got in nutrition, there's still more to learn. And it's okay to need to improve and to want to improve. It's a very wonderful, positive thing. You've got to be okay with it. You have to be okay with being human. And obviously, when you do make mistakes, when you are human, try not to see yourself as a complete failure. It's not all or nothing. It's not black and white. It doesn't mean you need to pull the pin and quit on yourself. Every single person on this planet has made a mistake in their lifetime, or many. Obviously, if you think you're a failure, this leads to feelings of defeat, and in turn, that feed back into that self-sabotage cycle. So you're not a failure, you just had some trouble. And we all do. Even the people who look perfect, looks like the whole world is, just completely sorted. You don't know what's going on behind closed doors. And you shouldn't compare yourself, as I said in previous podcasts. but never look at your setbacks as complete failures. Long-term success also comes with short-term failures and mistakes. If you do not view success as an up and down roller coaster, it is, okay? Or climbing a mountain that's got, easy bits and very difficult bits, then you're going to be approaching life expecting perfection. So that perfectionism, as much as people might joke about it, is so toxic. It's such a toxic way to view your life and putting these high expectations on yourself. Progress is not linear, far from it. Success is not linear, far from it. The sooner that you become okay with growth, learning and making mistakes, because it all comes as a package. Growth and learning aren't just about everything feeling awesome. There are mistakes in there. The sooner you can see your journey as just that, a journey, not a sprint, whether or not it is completely successful today, tomorrow, or the next day, as long as you move forward, this is literally all that matters in contribution towards your goals, as long as you keep moving forward and obviously in that process reassessing, but if you stay where you are, or you decide, I'll just go backwards because this is hard, nothing's going to change. The reality of it is sustainable change for health, nutrition, fitness, mindset is an incredibly long and at times grueling endeavor. There are rewarding parts of it, but it would be so much worse if you look at something like it needs to be rushed, okay, or something that you're dreading. In essence, if you're wanting to hold on to the changes that you want for yourself, this is going to have to be something that you continue onwards for the rest of your life, or it adapts and changes slightly. But if you want this and you want this forever, you're probably going to need to contribute towards it in some way forever. Sustainable change requires sustainable effort and energy, not quick fixes. So that's it from me. Hopefully you enjoyed this vlog and podcast. It does relate back to other podcasts. I often say this, and there is no coincidence in that. These concepts will tie in with each other for a reason, because it's a holistic perspective. It's not about just tackling one problem or one issue or one type of mindset, but almost adopting this multifaceted way of living. And I am by no means a perfect human being. I am forever learning. I still have flaws. I still make mistakes on a daily basis. Not with my work, because my work is something I can do in my sleep, but certainly in life endeavors, we all go through that process of teething with literally anything. It could be a project, it could be a goal, it could be saving for something, whatever it is, we all have weaknesses, okay? But don't always reach for the quickest possible option to mask, band-aid, or bury. That's it from me. Talk to you soon.